Even so, Vex didn't stop scouting the burnings. Ben had to be somewhere. But God, it had only been 2 weeks, and Vex was exhausted to the bone. Etta caught up to him. Vex expected her to punch him in the shoulder for being irritable, but she walked next to him in silence as if he was a brittle creature, which pissed him off.
Threats darkened Grace Loray's shore only when the Stream Raider syndicates rose against Argrid, said the councilman. What we perceived as aggression from Argrid was, in fact, defensors countering the attacks from Stream Raiders. All this time, we blamed the Argridians when they were as much victim as Grace Loray, the true enemy. The cause of our combined ills is the manipulative evil Stream Raider syndicates.
Argrid is evil, Vex screamed in his head. Argrid is the enemy, you lying sack of crocodile shit. When Grace Loray was discovered centuries ago, it became a free-for-all settler's paradise. People from the 5 mainland countries had come, filled it up, and lived in moderate tolerance, until Argrid decided to seize control and attempted to regulate its magic. To counter Argrid's forceful claim, immigrants from the other 4 countries had each formed syndicates to protect their own. They had been right to. Argrid had tightened its grip on Grace Loray, outlawing the magic plants that grew in the island's waterways and burning anyone who disagreed with the church's doctrine. Rebels had fought off Argrid and instituted a democracy. But even that failed when Argrid infiltrated the Grace Lorayan government. Now, Argrid was back. Instead of forcing its standards of purity and magic abstinence on the whole island, it had singled out one group, Stream Raiders. Lawless thieves hated by any who weren't raiders themselves, which made them perfect unifying scapegoats.
Raiders hoard deadly magic,
the council member continued to the all-too-silent crowd. Why weren't they screaming in fury? Why weren't they outraged?
Raiders pillage and destroy in the name of defiance for defiance's sake. Soon, you will not have to live in fear. The council has allied with Argrid to purge Grace Loray in pursuit of our joint goal, a war on raiders.
Vex's lungs swelled. Variations of this weak-ass speech had introduced every execution he and his crew had infiltrated these past 2 weeks, as though any words could diminish the horror of people burning to death. But people weren't burning, not this time. Raiders were burning. A spasm swept over Vex, and he stumbled. His shaking sickness spells were getting harder to hide, as though his body knew his one chance at a cure had been stabbed to death on the deck of the Astuto. The thought of Lu hit him like scalding water, and he caught himself on a window frame. Beyond his trembling fingers, a cloudless blue sky capped the island's tangle of deep green jungle. Breaks in the trees spoke of the rivers that wound across the island, with long plumes of steam rising over boats. Below was the castle's garden. Etta put her hand on his shoulder.
You all right?
This was the place he and Lu had escaped from weeks ago. He had to be standing right above the window he'd yanked open and jumped out with Teo on his back. Lu had been downright furious at him for bringing the 6-year-old along, but what else could he have done? She had to admit that the journey had been good for the kid. Vex scratched at the rough indigo sleeve of his stolen servant's uniform.
Good.
Sure, if good meant Teo sitting in a shack in Port Mezitib. Since Vex had come back without Lu 2 weeks ago, the only person Teo had spoken to had been Etta. But when Vex asked her what he said, she'd told him,
"He's a kid. He doesn't know how to deal with what's going on."
Vex's heart throbbed, and he shook off Etta's hand.
"I'm fine, let's go."
Etta gave him a look of disbelief. She fiddled with the Budwig bean, and her face got distant, as though she was listening to a voice echo down a tunnel.
"We're on the 3rd floor now. Servants' hall on the south side."
A pause.